to inspect it.
Hello and welcome back to Paranormal Perspectives. My name's Stan, and once again we have Christine with us. How are you doing, Christine?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, doing great. Like I said a minute ago, I'm really enjoying your colour scheme today. A bit of pink, purple, red.
All good stuff.
So today we have really interesting conversations. So, of course, as you guys know, me, Stan, I'm a medium. Christine is a medium. I've more recently become a medium, or at least been more open about being a medium. Christine, is it fair to say you've been open about being a medium for quite a few years? Is that right?
Yeah.
This conversation is really about the challenges mediums encounter. So I suppose kind of posing the question, like, why do people hate mediums so much? Why is there such a vehement kind of anger that people have by just simply saying the word medium? Because I don't know about you, like, before I knew about mediums, I knew about the stigma before I knew about actual mediums. I lived in the world of, Mystic Meg and her comedy equivalent, Septic Peg. And if you remember the comedian from years ago, and them being made to seem as being a bit crazy, being very unkind and very money-focused, and there's a horrible caricature of this personality, and socially it's almost seen as acceptable to be that way. It's just like you don't question, you just laugh along. And there are many other cultures out there and people of different backgrounds or identities that, okay, if you dare to act that way, it will be seen as terrible socially. Yet today it's still seen as being kind of okay to make fun of mediums, really. So, we are a bit kooky. There's no surprise there, but this conversation is really about normalising the understanding of mediums and trying to learn a bit more about them and just be a bit kinder to them, really, and understand their struggles. And also, if you think you might be a medium out there as well, maybe there might be something from this conversation you can take back to help yourself, to know, okay, well, is this now my time to be open to my social group, my family, my religious, group, whatever it might be, to be open about what I am, or do I need to just sit back a bit more and just think? I want to pose the question to you, Christine. Why do people hate mediums?
I guess it's what they've heard and they've never bothered to look any further. You make a valid point. It was only about 3 weeks ago on TV. Somebody mentioned mediums, and there was a lot of sniggering amongst the people, and and I thought, like yourself, you wouldn't put somebody from the Muslim faith, the Christian faith, or the Buddhist faith, any faith, on television and sneer at them. But it's okay to do that for mediums. I mean, for mediums, it's not a religion, it's not a belief, it's a way of life. And so why this? I think because we tend to mock what we don't know. Uh, I mean, what we're saying to people is, you're not going to die at the end of this life. You're going to go on and you're going to continue. That's a hell of a lot to take in. So we perhaps can't handle that. So when you get people come around and say, well, actually, this life continues, they must be a bit cuckoo. Unless it's happened to you, unless you've had an experience. So I think a lot of it's based on ignorance. It's, like I say, it's mocked on TV. And then, of course, you do get people that have claimed to be a medium and have been caught downright basically acting up, shamming it out. I'm not going to say any names because I'd probably get some sort of legal writ against me. But there are people out there that have claimed that they've got mediums. So what the public sees is people who are shams. They don't understand what mediums have to do. And I just think it's a lack of knowledge because you know yourself, until something happens to you that's sort of like so far out there that you've got to stretch your mind. If that never happens to you, it's perhaps safer to stay in this, little space where it's like you're the idiot. But mediums are not idiots, they're just normal people that are doing probably normal lives, and they've got this ability somehow to connect with other dimensions, worlds, spirits, call it what you want, but it is real. And again, I come to the internet. We've got things like podcasts at our fingertips where we can listen to credible people. So perhaps as time goes on, there won't be that sort of mocking, because it's a mockery thing. You're the idiot for believing that. I was quite offended by seeing that on the TV, because I thought you wouldn't have done that to anybody of any other belief. You wouldn't have done it to a gay person, mock them on the TV, because it's not socially acceptable, but it's okay to do it to us. And I think part of it also is talking about the gay movement. I can remember the very early days of, when gay people didn't stand up for themselves. They walked in the shadows. They had to hide their true self. And a lot of I think the problem that's why we have this problem with mediumship not being taken seriously is because we're not prepared to come out and say, look, this is my real belief. I'm not asking you to respect it particularly, but know that it's a massive part of my life. We should be proud of it. And maybe that's part of it. But I think there's a lot of things. And if you remember, I think people are intrigued by it, Stan. Like, the old lady that the old wise lady used to go to for your wart charms. You're a little bit frightened as well. Because I remember somebody saying to me, I would never let you give me a reading because I don't want you to read my mind. And I said, that's not how it works. I think he must have been frightened that I could read his innermost thoughts. That's not mediumship. I mean, I'm rather worried that why he was afraid of me getting inside his head. Perhaps he had something there to hide. But yeah, maybe it's a fear thing. Does all of that make any sense to you?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, lack of education often breeds hate, and that's the thing. But also, why aren't people educated about this kind of thing? It's been around for thousands of years. It's predated many currently active religions, and yet still it's just seen as a bit of a no-no. You don't talk about it. I mean, yeah, there has been periods of time in history where it was just seen as quite socially acceptable to talk about it, to access higher energies. Think about, for example, like the Native Americans, certain periods of the Greek culture as well. You think about, obviously, certain aspects of India through the ages, and yeah, I know different religions have kind of grown from there, but at some point in history, it has come back numerous times, this need to connect to something higher than your own kind of localized consciousness and connect to a higher consciousness. So, I mean, I was quite ignorant. I'll admit, I meant to you, Christine, like years ago, I was quite ignorant, and as a younger person, I had previously gone through quite a tremendous trauma, had an out-of-body experience. And I was so kind of compacted for many years trying to keep this thing inside, and I was so scared to talk about it because it made no sense. And it contradicted the religion I was part of at the time, and also my social group as well. Like, it was a big thing to know and to live with. But my ignorance came of like seeing that experience as being dirty. So I felt like I was impure for having an out-of-body experience, and then coming back with this awareness that I'd never had before. And I kind of went through years of like watching these mockeries of mediums. Like I say about Septic Peg, if you guys kind of remember from many years ago, it was like the joke on the TV. And different characters where, for example, you saw people like Derek Akura on Most Haunted, and I do believe he was a real medium, but was taken up by, obviously, fame and affected by that. But you see kind of people like him, like I saw him years ago, like being this kind of big personality, and it felt like an act. And I know it was towards the later stages of his career where he was being pushed and pressured to almost perform in a way. And then I never took the idea of a medium as serious, like they are genuinely connecting with spirits, or they're respecting whatever's around them. So I kind of lived ignorantly then, just thinking like, yeah, it was a bit of a joke. That was until I met Penny, and Penny, who appeared on our earlier episodes, and I was dealing with this whole dark entity that had followed me back from the hospital following an accident. And I know, Christine, you know this story though, so it's just for the viewers that haven't heard this before. I had an out-of-body experience as a kid, and I met this horrible dark entity in the hospital, and it then pursued me, followed me home, and for many different years, I experienced poltergeist activity, like items being moved around the house, whistling, big loud conversations, the warping of reality, strange smell, footsteps, like pretty much every classic form of poltergeist phenomenon you can think of. And I just learned to live with that then, because I was so scared. I didn't want to talk about it. Like, just me and my sister would share stories of things we experienced. And then one day it grew so strong and so powerful. I encountered something that was so dark and nasty and incredibly dangerous in my bedroom. Like, it was daytime, but it turned to night in my bedroom. And I saw that the whole room warp. This horrible feeling of like oppression, like the gravity being pulled down, and it was like something was sucking me in. It just felt very dangerous. So, me being me, I would of course freak out, and I ran out the house. And it was only then where my mum actually reached out to a friend of hers that she knew was a medium, and from there, that's where I discovered the true medium, as in like not the mediums I saw on the TV, an actual real life medium. And Penny, being Penny, was like a ghostbuster. She fought this thing to within an inch of its life, like. This thing was hissing and growling and insulting her and moving things around the room. And eventually she kicked this thing's backside, and eventually it left. And that's where I discovered, like, the life I'd been living then was being affected by this, this thing, as well as many other things anyway, but that thing mainly. I discovered what it was like to feel happy for that time. And I began to feel better and better very rapidly. Then I began to realise this is what mediums do. They just help. They don't ask for money, they don't ask for a big show, they're not performers. They're there just to do the right thing, and they happen to have an access to a level of reality that others don't have. But the people that don't have access to that level of reality are kind of powerless to these quite dark forces. And they're there to help you out. It's almost like, I dare to say it's like an additional like level of the NHS, for example. Like, it's like an emergency service. Call the Ghostbusters, we're here to believe you, that kind of thing. But yeah, jokes aside, it's like if I'd never had met Penny, I would never have gotten rid of this thing, at least before it became really bad and really dangerous. So I don't know if I'd even be here today, quite frankly. But also, I didn't realise then that I eventually, came to realise that I'm a medium. And I don't like saying it. I feel a bit embarrassed to say it, but that comes from my programming, that I'm beginning to undo that. So when I say I'm a medium, I feel like I'm opening myself up to bullying, all the random abuse, all the other, the crap that people like that don't deserve, just by simply saying the word, has so many intonations that are negative. And it's a shame that people make the assumptions. So now I'm beginning to make peace and say it more. But even so, like, I didn't want to become a medium. I didn't ask to become a medium. In a way, I kind of feel a bit angry that I was kind of thrust into this whole world, because it's been a wonderful big gift. And it's helped me to help other people too. But at the same time, I've gone through some pretty dark things, and I've seen some pretty dark things that it's very hard to get over. And it's hard to just live a normal life when you know what you know. And that's the thing, like, mediums do have a pretty hard time. So, yeah, why do people hate mediums? Well, because, like I say, it's a lack of knowledge. And imagine just once if you spoke to an actual medium, just that simple thing of just having a nice cup of tea and a nice conversation, getting to know somebody that you previously didn't know. Like, you don't have to believe in what they believe in. There's nothing wrong with that. But to just be open enough to have a conversation with someone to realise actually they're just people. Just people. It's as simple as that. So to anybody that maybe has a negative view of a medium, like, what would you say to them? Like, how would you, Christine, like, on a level with them? I know that's quite a big question to ask, though. Like, if you had a challenge, basically, like, what would you say other than, ideally not swearing, really, but how would you level with them and say, look, I want to tell you what I am now, and I need to trust that you're going to listen?
Who am I talking to?
Hypothetically, I don't know, Dave the angry guy on the internet.
I've had loads of those run-ins. Some guy told me once I was cruel. What a cruel bitch I was, because I was telling people that there was an afterlife. I wasn't telling anybody. It was a discussion. Yeah, he called me cruel for giving people false hope. I says, well, because as far as he was concerned, at the end of life, you're dead. And I went, well, it ain't going to matter, is it, if I'm bullshitting? Because they're going to be dead anyway, versus, can you see where I'm coming from? Isn't it better to live with hope? But it comes down to the evidence. These people, it comes down to, I don't think you can ever tell anybody anything. It has to come from your own experience. And I want to go back to your couple of things that you said. Now, Derek Acora was an excellent medium. Unfortunately, and I don't want to say any more than this, he was pressured into producing stuff for that show. Right, moving on. But yeah, I think you're always going to have skeptics that are closed-minded. So if I said to Mr. Angry Man, I'm a medium, he's always going to come back with, no, you're not. So you live the life. You show that it's not a passing phase. That was something else somebody told me. Oh, it's just a phase you're going through. Well, I'm 68 and I'm still in the phase. Does it come to an end? I mean, I was really insulted once. I was due to do a demonstration, and this girl said, yeah, I always get a bit nervous. I don't like doing public demonstrations. And she went, oh, I'll come in the audience and you can read me. And I said, do you realize what you've just said to me? You're telling me that you don't believe I can do it, that I need to have you sat there. And I felt so insulted. If you've been touched by the spirit world, you could never tell a lie. You can't, because you know that you're going to have to account for that one day. And coming back, as I say again, it's got to come down to experience. I believed it's a hard thing to believe when somebody stands in front of you and says, I can speak to dead people. That, that's a big statement. And that's why I think some people go, really? I want to know more about it. Others are just like, no, that's not happening. It's not true. But you and I know it is true. And we know it's true because we've experienced various things. And again, it has to come down to experience. It's like anything to do with the paranormal. I saw a ghost once, a ghost's legs, in a park, 1 o'clock in the morning, me and 2 others. I saw them. But if you told me that, I'd be going, really? So I think it's down to being proud about, this is who I am. I talk to dead people. And, whatever you say to me, it's not going to put me off. It's not going to dissuade me because I know what I know. Does that make sense?
What fuels the kind of mental kind of shortcomings really, I'm talking about, but in terms of perception, is that people seem to believe that they know that their view of the world is absolute. It applies across the universe. So when that person said to you, how dare you give people hope for believing that there's something else, because I believe that when I die there's nothing. Like, you have every right to believe that there's nothing when you die. I'm not here to tell you that. It's your mind and your life. And that that may go from what you've seen so far. I haven't seen anything. All I know is that things die. That makes complete logical sense.
Absolutely.
For them to tell you that your opinion is dangerous or can be hurtful or selfish, whatever it might be, again, it just implies that they assume they are the level, they are the measure, and you are going beyond the measure, so therefore you are bad. But who's to say either's right? It could be that both is wrong. You never know. But I know what I believe.
Kieran, the more I listen to stories, podcasts, other people's experiences, I realise there's so much more for us to learn. And where I sat on, say, EVPs, for example, a few months ago, a few years ago, I wasn't. Now I've heard them for myself. I accept them. We've got to be prepared and open-minded enough to say, well, okay, like you say, I've only ever seen things die. I haven't seen anything, I haven't experienced anything. But open your mind to the possibility, and then we can start to move forward. And I think there will always be people that, you could put something right in front of them and they'd find a way to sort of go, no, that's...
But I'm okay with that. I'm okay if people say, okay, I presented you with something, and they say, I don't believe that. That's perfectly okay.
Yeah,
it's always going to be okay. And it may be one day that they do believe it, and maybe one day that they never believe in it. It's when people act with anger and try and stunt you from you being you, and that's when the issue arises. And have you ever noticed, Christine, that they all say the same thing, that when they complain about the idea of mediums for all their different reasons, and obviously I respect people's reasons, but they always come to this particular point and say this particular word. They always say charlatan. Have you ever noticed that? They all say the same exact phrase, charlatan. Why is that?
They probably read it somewhere and it sounds good, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, it's quite a cool sounding word. It makes you sound intelligent when you say the word charlatan, because you could say liar, you could say you're spreading falsehoods, you could be saying you're deceiving people. Yeah.
Nature of mediumship. Think ghost, yeah? She's there ripping, this little Italian lady off, and all of a sudden she hears the real deal.
Yeah.
So here we've got, this is, I think, what stereotype of mediums tend to be, somebody sitting in a dark room ripping people off. And that goes into the psyche. Yeah, that goes into the psyche. Well, I mean, in Ghost, look at its wife. She rejected that woman, didn't she? She was like, you're, because it's a lot to get your head around. It's a lot to get your head around when somebody says, I've got your dead brother here, and he was murdered by, or your dead lover and he was murdered by his workmate. You'd be going like, what the hell? But we know those things can actually happen. If it doesn't happen to you, you haven't got anything to stand it up against, have you?
Yeah, but you could say that, with the reference to ghosts, that people should assume that all mediums are great at pottery, to be fair, and I can't really attest to that. I'm not particularly great myself. Being a medium is pretty awful sometimes, but there are some parts of it that are amazing as well. And speaking to people like Penny and also other mediums that I met, and I don't know, Christine, if you agree with this, like when you read for somebody or when you automatically switch on, it could be like an emergency, just sensing something is wrong. It's like, I don't know, spider sense, or the best way to just describe it. But sometimes it will switch on when you need to know something, and it could be, like I say, it could be a danger or something that you need to act upon quickly. Or, like I say, when you open yourself up for that, it really takes the energy out of you. And I know people that have done readings and they've been out of energy for days and days and days, and it's not a physical energy being lost. It's like a spiritual energy. Like you need a certain amount of I don't know, connection or whatever it might be, just to kind of encase the soul in this body kind of thing. But it makes them ill.
Well, see, this concerns me that you're saying that. I have never felt like that when I've worked with spirit. I've actually felt it's like you are flying. It's like you've taken a substance and you are buzzing. It's a real high. It doesn't last a long time. It goes on. For me, it was like somebody had wiped out 30 years of my age. So any infirmity had gone. I felt light. I felt confident. I felt myself.
That's beautiful.
I felt myself getting taller. I knew immediately that what I was saying was, yes, that's it. And I knew stuff that I couldn't possibly know. And then when it ended, it was like, I felt like that for about 5-10 minutes. But I would be concerned if I was doing readings and they were leaving me feeling like that, because that's an energy. I do know if you have a trance medium, sometimes they feel very tired afterwards, sleepy, but it's never happened to me. I've always felt like I've been given a shot of life, to be honest with you. That would concern me it would put me off doing readings if I felt like that every time I did a reading. And I would ask, who am I working with?
I wonder if it varies based on the kind of medium, because you have like clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, claircognizance, I don't know the others, to be honest. I just know the four. Let me know if there are any more though. But
when you're working as a medium, I know I have strong clairvoyance, but when you're actually doing a reading, you are using all five together. Your strongest one might be clairvoyance. So I tend to see I am actually seeing something playing out in front of me, but I'm also aware that all the other things come in together. For something to leave you feeling tired, where is that? What is that entity that's making you feel? Because spirit is always uplifted, always.
I've experienced the euphoria you get when you connect, and it's just a wonderful feeling that nothing can match. There's times when, I haven't done lots of readings, admittedly, like, so I'm very kind of almost part-time with what I'm doing. I'm being very careful and gradually building up because what I have is quite very strong. And it's a bit scary sometimes when it switches on because it's a bit overwhelming. And but I think that comes from me just like putting the brakes on too much. I don't fully embrace it and go, look, this is a natural thing. It's okay, just trust it. And I will trust it in time anyway. So like I said, I'm being honest and saying, I'm a work in progress. But yeah, there are people that have connected and perform readings. And I know that they've been without energy for days and days. And I kind of question, is it because of the kind of medium that they are, because of the facilities they're using, or is it the person they're reading for? Are they going through such a negative time that they're in a way almost removing that from them to allow them some peace, to maybe help them resolve an issue? But I don't know if maybe some mediums maybe act like more of a sponge than a radio. But then you could say you could be an empath.
Yeah, I do know. If we've done a reading for that hasn't been what I call red art, it can make you feel like you're walking through treacle. So it can be slow, and yet another one you will get, and it's just coming like this, and it's literally flowing. That feels uplifting. Yeah, sometimes you can be working with somebody and say, for instance, they won't accept stuff, or they and they are. That can be tiring. For instance, if you're doing a reading and you've got somebody trying to come through, and the person that's sitting there won't accept them for whatever reason, so which did happen to me. It was two young men, but the sitter wouldn't take them. She didn't recognize, and I couldn't move past them because they wanted me to be acknowledged. That was tiring. It wasn't an enjoyable thing because they just wouldn't let me get past them. They were determined to be heard. In the end, when she accepted them, it took off.
Maybe it's a lesson for me to trust it more. So I'm still kind of frightened by the stigma, like not because I care what people think, it's more because I care when people deliberately cause obstacles for no reason. I'd rather just me be me and you be you kind of thing. And there's even one instance, like, I finally kind of said more publicly that I was a medium about a year and a half ago, I think it was, just to my kind of, my Facebook group, really, to friends. And I did it just trusting that it would be okay. I thought, like, I just needed to say this thing now. And it's when I was going through, the circle that me and you were in. And eventually I came to a point where, like, even you guys were all saying, "Look, you bloody idiot, like, you are." Just say it, just embrace it, though. And I wouldn't... So I think I always made that joke, I'm a small, not a medium, which is also part of the podcast theme tune as well. It's actually, an acknowledgement that some mediums don't see themselves as medium. They're still on that way of progress, of learning. So yeah, when I said it openly in this group, I'm amazed that people either said nothing or they only said positive things, and it was really quite sweet, and I really appreciated that. So it made me trust people a bit more. And then I think the only person that responded negatively was a colleague that I'd worked with years prior, and a lot of respect for him. He's a really talented guy, and obviously I'm not going to reveal who it is because I want to keep their life private. But yeah, someone that I respected a lot, a really nice person, like, he'd do anything for you. And so I kept in contact, and we weren't in regular contact all the time at that point when I said that. And just by me saying that, he just straight away commented, "Oh, okay, well, you better not charge though, otherwise I'll call you a charlatan," which is really unlike him. I thought, well, you're normally quite a nice guy, actually. It's a really weird response. And I said to him, like, I don't think there's any need for that. Like, what do you really mean? And he said, oh, no, it's just a joke. It's just a joke. And I sort of just ignored it though. And like a few days later, like sent me a message direct and said, "You're a charlatan." It's that phrase again. You're a charlatan. So yeah, he sent me a message and he just simply said that phrase that they all say. Okay, you're a charlatan. And made all these really weird assumptions that you must be a horrible person and you must be this, and like all from just saying that word. And that person knew me for years prior and knew that I was quite a decent, solid person. You know, I wouldn't do anything bad to anybody and would never do that. And it's weird how he immediately went from 0 to 100. And obviously I said to him, like, if that's the way you're going to be, I don't want to know, quite frankly. And I said, it's really sad that you think that about anybody in the world, really. I said, if you ever want to know anything about it, tell me. If you don't, that's fine, but you don't have a right to insult me. And that was that, really. But I find it so weird how people are so comfortable with doing that. Like, to them, it's like going out to buy a pint of milk. I'll buy a pint of milk, insult a medium, maybe I'll buy a packet of cigarettes and then head home.
But you see, the thing is, money. Straight away, people will assume that you're ripping off people that are in grief for loads of money. And to be fair, there are people that do that. That absolutely, you know, he's taken a stereotype or what he's read or whatever, and given that over to you. But I would say to you, and I'd say to anybody, if you develop as a medium, don't expect your life to be easy. I don't know anybody that is currently a medium that hasn't had a load of trauma in their life. And a lot of them also, people have mocked them, people stopped talking to them, because it's part of your development. It's part of making you don't know this, but it's forming your character. So as you go through your mediumistic journey, you will find that people come to you for readings that have had similar experience. And it's about learning and passing that on. It's a shame that people feel like that, but it's almost like, I felt like I wanted to come out the closet and go, I'm not gay, but I am a medium. And I'd come out and said, I'm gay, people are going, okay. But some people, not all, because most people, well, everybody knows me, knows where I'm at with this. But certainly when I was younger, if I come out and said I was a medium, it would have been like, yeah, right. And I didn't. I saved it until I was comfortable. And even then it was kind of like, well, am I really? I was afraid of what people would say.
Also, I tend to confuse what a medium is sometimes because to me there's two different versions. There's like the medium that you are, and then there's a medium that you choose to be. So you could be born with an ability and embrace it, but also people can learn how to do it though. So to me, my understanding is like you're born as a medium anyway. I believe that everybody in the world is a medium, and it's your choice as to whether you want to switch on that ability or not, because we were all born with it. And then to me, like when you train to be a medium, essentially you're training to either just embrace it, to better, to make the most of it, basically in a positive way. So to me, you're not training to become a medium; you already are a medium. You're training to refine your abilities, and it's almost like saying, I was born an artist, but I became a better artist through taking art lessons. So that's my understanding of it, though. But would you see differently?
No, I think that's absolutely correct. I think we're born with the potential to work as a medium, but we all are mediums. And the reason that we're all mediums is because we're spirit, right? Your spirit guide is spirit. We are spirit. We can connect. But certain people will somehow get woken up and decide to develop that. Some of them will develop it to an exceptional standard. We know who they are, the very famous ones. But there'll be a lot of people like me and you that may never do anything publicly, but we're still mediums because you're teaching by doing a podcast. Yeah, you're informing people. It's up to other people how they respond to that. I was nervous about it when I started doing our podcast. I thought, well, here you go.
Which you've done an amazing job, by the way.
Thank you very much. But I'm talking when I first started with you last year, and it's kind of like, wow, there you go. I can't argue with that now. I'm comfortable with it because that's who I am. And I think people would probably accept it more if I come out and said I was gay. Because we've come to terms with that. I mean, maybe that's a like cultural explosion. I mean, but instead of like everybody else having a go, maybe the mediums need to come out the closet and say, and have our own flag and stand up what we believe in. Because what we've got is a very, very important message, and that is we don't die. All that's going on in this world is just preparation for a massive adventure.
It's part of a grand sequence as well. It's like, this is like a tiny adventure in amongst another tiny adventure and another one, another one, another one. It's a whole infinite chain of experiences and lives, and and I was brought up on the religious interpretation of what comes after. So of course, if you abide by the book and you pray to a certain different entities that we have validated for you, then and as long as you stick to those things, regardless of whether those things make you do bad or not, in reality, you get given automatic access to heaven. And if you're not christened, you go to purgatory, or it's various different things. And it is, I don't want to say crazy, because like I said, I respect people's right to have religion and believe in these things. So I'm never going to say it's crazy, but it's not for me, basically. But at the same time, it does feel a bit, to me, in comparison to what I know now, it seems crazy. It'd be crazy for me if I believe in that. But it may not be crazy for the next person. It may sit with them well and may give them a good life.
No, what I mean is all the religions, right? All the religions talk about a life hereafter. Yeah, but they wrapped it up and put conditions on it. You've got to do this ritual, that ritual. And in actual fact, I think, I don't want to even call spiritualism. What we believe, what we know, doesn't put those constraints on it at all. You've got to stand, ultimately, you have to stand in front of your maker at some point and say, this is what I did with my life. And that gives you the freedom to be anything you want, good, bad, and indifferent.
Yeah, but to own it and not put the onus on an external entity to take that burden. So whether it be the devil or whoever you pray to,
how many people have been killed because of an entity, or in the name of a god? If you've got if you've got a supreme creative spirit, I can't see him, her, it being happy with us, killing each other in his, her, its name.
Yeah. And I suppose where I'd pose the question, and again, I know I'm one for profound questions, like, do mediums believe in God?
I believe in a creative, a supreme creative force. Right, let me get my head around that. A supreme
Go for it.
Because the God one just cooks my noodle. I believe from that supreme creative force, we are all part of. I don't know how it works. If I did, well, crikey. No, I think we're in the fortunate position that we don't try to tie it down with rituals and laws and rules, and we don't try to, when we talk about spirit, we don't talk about it as being personified. And I think where religion went wrong, it tried to wrap all this wonderful stuff into one person and say, you must behave like this. Spirit doesn't say you must behave like this. Spirit says, here's free will. Do with it what you will, but you have to, at some point, take account for that. That's for me. That's why it works for me, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I'm still grappling with the idea of God, because my first introduction to God was of a different, organisation, let's just say. And when I say the word God, I have like a negative feeling around it, and not because I feel it's wrong, because I feel like I was given the wrong thing. And I know I spent some time actually studying atheism as well because I wanted to understand that mindset, and I kind of get atheism, why they feel that way. It's, there shouldn't really be a word atheism. There shouldn't really be a word for saying I don't believe in that, because atheism isn't, obviously, as we know, it's not religion. It's just simply, okay, there's this thing that exists, this belief system that people assume that everybody believes anyway, so I have to put a word onto this thing just to state that I'm not, in that crowd, basically. But for what I've experienced firsthand, I've met, like I said, I'm still like, I'm speaking to someone at the moment about my experiences when I was in hospital when I was a kid, and I encountered this entity that one day I'll be able to fully describe it to you, but I explained it in my book Paranormality, and in the best way that I can. And it was simply like being encountered. It's almost being confronted with something that exists and doesn't exist at the same time. It's like, imagine being face to face with a paradox. And I know that sounds completely nuts, and it's so hard to explain in English, like what it means, but I encountered something that was so vast yet so small, so hot yet so cold, if that makes sense. It's almost like I encountered something that was so beyond, I don't know, everything, and it was so frightening, because it's almost like being like introduced to like the infinite, like, endless data, being everywhere all at once and being nowhere, existing and not existing. I can keep on going and saying these things, but when I think about that experience, like, to me as an adult, it still kind of scares me to talk about, but I love having a chance to talk about it because over time it's gradually making it less scary. But at the same time, I still haven't fully decided on a God just yet, whether I do believe it exists. But I do believe there is a God, but that a belief is just a belief based on no knowledge, no first-hand experience. It's just, I believe. Like, I could say that I believe in Man Bear Pig from South Park. I haven't met Man Bear Pig, but I believe in it. I like the idea of it existing. But I did encounter something. I did actually see something. So I know that's there. That bit of data is always going to be in my mind. And was that a God? Was that something else beyond that? I don't know. But I do know that there is something more. But I don't believe in a God yet because I haven't seen the God, if that makes sense. So I'm kind of almost like halfway there. It's the best way I can describe it, though. So yeah, sorry for the very long answer, but I'm kind of in between.
What the spirit world allegedly talks about God, and there's some very good books out there where people have channeled through mediums, and they get asked, well, have you seen God? And the answer invariably comes back that we experience God, but we've never seen God. We experience the effects of God. And yeah, go outside and look up, and all of that, we've got so much, if there is an individual that created that, yeah, we're really quite pathetic trying to put it into one person and put it within the confines of the church, aren't we? Really, when you think about it, that immense power. So yeah, I do believe in, if you want to call it God, I call it a creative force. I see it more like if I do see it, I see it as almost like a volcano, and it's bubbling. It's making, it's creating, or it's providing the stuff for creation. But something, yeah, I think that's intelligent design in our universe. Now, don't tell me that was a little green men that did that. When you look at the way our galaxy, rather, is all lined up so damn perfectly, it does appear that intelligent design's behind that, Kieran, isn't it?
I think it wouldn't surprise me at this point, I suppose. But yeah, eventually I'll come to terms with it and kind of accept it. like I say, I've been a reluctant medium, despite having the abilities of a medium from a kid. It took me until I was 30, I would say, in my 30s, to accept it. Probably be until my 60s I accepted this idea of there being a higher power. But the way I see it is, we spend our time on Earth, and I think it's safe to say that you haven't been to space, Christine, anyway. And I'm not saying that the Earth is flat.
The other weekend, I was up there.
Okay, you go on. Was it that blue rocket thing from Amazon? Yeah. Was it Katy Perry? Was it Katy Perry went into space, or the other lady? Yeah, wonderful bozos.
I mean, it's
but,
hard. Then they're hardly astronauts, are they?
I know, but I'm happy for them that they got to see that, though. But imagine how many lives they would have changed with the money they spent on that. But anyway, but we see the effects of Earth all the time. Like, I'm quite short-sighted, though, so I can only see it a short distance away in perfect vision, and then beyond that it gets blurrier and blurrier. We can see the effects of being on a large body in space because we have gravity, and obviously, mass equals obviously gravity. Without going to the big explanation. So we see the effects of it, but I haven't seen the entirety of the Earth in one go. So in a way, that's possibly why I'm kind of grappling with it. Like, it's something that's so vast and so big, I can only see almost like a single cell of a giant organism. And it's hard to say that you know something exists when you're so in amongst it that it's hard to recognise. So, but when I encountered this thing, basically, I think that's the paradox that I think a lot of people, whether you're religious or not, try to uncover. It's like, with our puny little brains, and I don't mean to insult the human brain because it's an amazing creation, or evolutionary creation, it depends on what you believe, but we're so puny in terms of our understanding, we can't even begin to comprehend it. And do we have to believe in a God? Because but belief is, I suppose, is a choice of, like, I believe in something before I know. So I suppose, yeah, we can believe in it, though, but people tend to talk about belief as if it's a fact, and that's the thing as well. Like, I don't know. It's such a weird conversation to have. I know, though, but I find this all very fascinating.
I think that's the difference between. I mean, I was brought up a Catholic, so I underwent all the various rituals. And I had a certain belief. Certainly, I believed that Jesus Christ lived here and all the rest of it. But it was all wrapped up in the Catholic Church. But it was only a belief. The difference with the whole mediumship thing is it's a knowledge. When somebody, or when you...
Exactly on point there, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. When you as a medium can have a person sat in front of you and you can give them a piece of evidence that is so precise to that, not a general, I've got your grannies here, but a more specific piece of information, you as a medium then know that you could not have known that. You couldn't have found it anywhere. The sitter knows that you got that information from somewhere else. At the very least, something else is going on that medium can tap into to get that piece of information out. And it opens up, and you have then a knowledge that there's more. But when I was a Catholic, I only had a belief. I'm just going to switch my light on because it's getting dark. I think it's the knowledge. It's the knowledge. And equally, when I was given a piece of information that was so precise, so completely precise, and it was given by Tony Stockwell, and it was the end of the demonstration he did here in Peterborough, and it's the information he gave me, I knew straight away, but it was just so specific, and it's not in the public domain. There's only a very few people that know about it. And yet he managed to describe exactly the course of events. If he wasn't talking to the spirit world, he was getting it from somewhere, because I hadn't bought the tickets. He didn't have a chance to have a look at, there was no fraud there. And I mean, I was with the other girls from the circle, and they're all going, oh my God. And I went, yeah, it was that specific. even got a name spot on, you've got to ask yourself, at the very least, I don't care how closed your mind is, perhaps just, people that are closed-minded, if they got that type of evidence, they wouldn't mock mediums quite as quickly as they do now.
Yeah. Well, I think you're onto something there, because that's almost the crux of the argument for people who hate mediums, is they're grappling with the belief. Mediums are dealing with the reality, the fact, and you can't fight a belief against a fact, kind of thing. But the person grappling with the belief that they think is being presented to them don't understand that you've seen something that they haven't seen. So you have the fact and they don't, in that instance. So it's always going to be a challenge.
Yeah, that's what I say. It's always going to be a challenge when you've got some people that are, blatantly not what they say they are. And I'm not talking about anybody I personally know. They blatantly are taking a lot of money, very little in return. There are people out there that are scamming people. And of course, this is what the public get to hear about. They get to hear about those kind of people. And that goes into their psyche. That's their story. Like you said, that guy, charlatans. Maybe that's the only piece of evidence, if you like, about mediums that he's ever seen, that they're all charlatans.
But I feel sorry for him. I hope he's okay now anyway, because it's not nice to live with that kind of attitude, I suppose. So I can understand why people think that way as well, because like I say, they do encounter people like that, and it does leave, a tar and stain on people's view. And so what did you want to say, Christine?
I've seen people that have, denied it because it can't possibly happen. But then, we want to take a look at people like Einstein. I mean, he's a fairly credible guy. He was doing research on stuff. He said very early on that there were interdimensional layers, that there were people. He was very interested in things like telepathy, psychic stuff. But of course, I guess he didn't give it its full attention because he was doing other stuff. But, there's some very credible physicists down through the ages that did real experiments. We've got recordings, it's out there, but some people just don't want to believe.
Yeah, but they may be happy with their particular view of the universe, and makes them feel safer to feel like their pen is quite closed in, and yeah, it's not for us to take that away from them.
No, but when you actually do wake up and realize that there's that there is a higher power, let's call it a higher power, or a point where you're going to have to, there's going to be a reckoning. Perhaps, by not believing it, it's pushing it away. Because when you do become aware of it, you start to have to work on yourself, because you realize, as you look down through your life, you've done some pretty shit things. And I tell you, the mental stuff really starts to, you've really got to search your soul. And this is why I say, mediums just don't pop up one morning and go, well, I'm a medium. It's hard work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite the grind. And yeah, I mean, it's something if people did decide to develop their abilities, they shouldn't take it lightly. They need to really stick to it and see it through. And maybe that they don't get results for weeks, even months, in terms of like getting results, in terms of like evidence, or feeling that connection and just getting an understanding. And some people, it just comes to them so naturally, it just switches on. And I'm one of the lucky/unlucky people of that sort. It's just like it comes so hard and so fast. And that's a terrible phrase to say on the internet, though. But yeah, it switches on so fast that it pounds you. Basically, it really takes the energy out of you. It sends you all over the place. And yeah, and at times I've been afraid of it. Really, I have been.
Is that how it affects you, Kieran?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like at first I'm kind of dipping the toes in the water, and I do get results, and I say things that match reality. I get information that's accurate, and that comes out of nowhere. but then I get like feelings, like quite overpowering feelings and images, and it then kind of goes into like an overload. Like, but I've learned to rein it in and bring it in when I need to. But that's where spirit guides come in as well, because also being in a medium is making use of your spirit guides, and I've been trying to connect with mine. And sometimes spirit guides are great at being like your mentor, ready to help pull you back when you need to, and also forewarn you of things you need to be careful with. So, like, imagine how a witch is familiar, basically, but in spirit form. It's wonderful thing to have. But you never told me about your spirit guide, Christine. Like, do you believe you have one?
Oh God, yeah, I know I've got one, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Does it have a name?
no. Well, I had a funny experience, and I have a massive fear of bears. I mean, a massive fear of bears, which is quite ridiculous because I live in the Fens in Cambridgeshire.
Well, it's quite logical though, because it's a dangerous animal.
Yeah, but we don't have a lot of bears wandering freely in the UK, in the Fens, the Cambridgeshire. So why I've got this massive fear, I don't know. Anyway, I had an experience. It was an out-of-body experience, and I was in a wood, and I could hear the crashing of the trees and all the rest of it, and I just knew it was a bear, and this enormous grizzly bear just charged through the woods, and it was like, whoa, this is my absolute dread, fear. Yeah, I was facing my fear, and this huge bear, he kind of looked down at me, put his head on the side, as if to say, wow, what are you? Scooped me up, and I immediately felt this massive rush of love and acceptance and all that lovely positive thing. Why am I talking about a bear in relation to my spirit guide? I've never seen him full on. I will see the side of his face. I often see him writing. So in a hot place, it feels Greeky. And I'm watching this guy, and he's sat writing. So I'm assuming that this is my guide. Anyway, one day, I was sitting, and he was beside me, and I know I can't look up at him. I'm aware of him. And I said, what is your name? Or do you have a name? And he said, Arteus. And I went, okay, thank you. And I felt like he was my big brother or something like that. Anyway, after this was all over, I went and had a look at the word Arteus, and it means bear. And I did not know that. I'm sure it's something to do with bear. It's a Greek name. Just bear with me.
You sure it's not Atreus by any chance?
Well, it might be.
Atreus, because that's like an old Greek name. And so you had a fear of bears before.
Almost.
And eventually you had a connection with your spirit guide, who eventually revealed its name. And then you Googled after, and then that's a name that links to bears.
It's the weirdest thing. It's one of those things. How are you spelling that, Arteus?
I think it might be Atreus. The only reason why I'm saying it is there's a game called God of War, and I don't know if you play video games. It's based on Greek legends, and one of the characters is called Atreus, and he has the spirit of a bear. I might be wrong there. So it's spelled Atreus. I think.
Am I saying it wrong then?
No, you might be right. I'm just saying. I'm just trying to help you anyway. So I wonder if it might be that, because it's like something just told me like to say that, and that's how my thing works.
I don't understand why I have such a fear of bears. As I say, I live in a place where I'm hardly ever likely going to see a bear.
Well, I'm sure we can find out more about that, because I've tried to get to know my spirit guide. Is when we were in a circle, we went through a few seconds where we practiced connecting to it. And all through my life, I keep having moments where I just knew exactly the right thing to say at exactly the right time.
Yeah.
And it'd be like just a word is thrown at me in my head, and I happen to say something that somebody needs to know, or just it gets thrown into the conversation. And there's times where I've freaked people out, not realising that I've said something that is very close to them. and they just don't know like where it came from. I don't mean to be that way. It's just the way it is. But I have this thing about knowledge. It's about knowing, and I went through this eventually, like this deep meditation, and tried to connect with my spirit guide. And it took a few attempts though, because I overthink all the time. I'm just constantly grinding ideas. And eventually, I managed to calm myself down just enough to sit, and I actually found myself in a place, like a Mediterranean place. Again, I don't know if it's Greek, like you mentioned. Maybe another coincidence, maybe though, but it's a place that felt old, and had kind of white, kind of marbled flooring, and these I don't know what to call them though, like these walls with these little pillars and steps leading to a tree at the top, and then there being like the blue of the sea, and it's like the contrast of the white and the blue of the sea, which was really striking. But I knew in this place that I used to sit there regularly, and I used to meet with people, and we'd be in these kind of robes. I remember that now, and I remember that then as well. I was sat there in a place, and I knew that I went there regularly to meet with people to discuss ideas. It's like I met other men in this time a long time ago to discuss, like, I don't know whether it was to do with philosophy or discussing things. I remember being in a place where like heated debates would happen, like not angry, shouty debates, like big ideas. I think this and I think that, and we'd always used to meet in this place by the sea, where these little benches were, and the size and all that though. But yeah, weirdly enough, as I began to get to know my spirit guide, eventually I kind of asked it, like, hey, can you tell me what your name is at least? Because there's times in my life where you've helped me. Can you at least tell me your name? And I don't know if it's his real name or if I feel like it's a joke, because it's a bit of a joker too. But it wanted to call itself Compendium. Obviously, Compendium being, a reference to a knowing of knowledge. And my obsession throughout my life is knowing things. I keep researching different things. I went on a philosophy binge a little while ago, and philosophy binge is such a dull word to say. It's so geeky, but I just study different philosophers and ideas and religions and beliefs. I just love knowing things. And weirdly enough, it links into this thing. And yeah, could it be my psyche creating an entity to represent what I might have been going through at that time? Who knows? But either way, my thing is, like, through my life, like, I've had things that have literally saved me. One evening I was on the way back from catching a train. This is like late at night. I think it was about 11:30 at night. It was not, of course, quite dark. And I was crossing this little bridge in Oxford to get to the other side of the road to start my walk back. And it was quite reasonably well lit in that section, like a small light shining down. And I saw someone on the other side in a tracksuit with a little plastic bag. And I didn't think too much of it though. I looked at them and they were smiling, and I'm thinking, okay, well, they seem quite friendly. And straight away I had the word, not just the image, just the word knife in my head. Knife, knife, knife. And it was so sudden that I almost lost balance. It kind of threw me back. And I thought, okay, this must be my imagination. I'm just, maybe I'm thinking negatively, maybe I'm assuming things. And I started walking towards this person as they met me on the other side, coming from the other side of the bridge. And they still were smiling though. They seemed kind of friendly enough though, but I had sort of feeling like something wasn't right. As they got closer to me, like just about, I'm really bad with measurements though, like a few centimetres away, like close enough for me to very clearly see there's a sharp object coming from the plastic bag. And as it got closer, I could see it was the very tip of a knife that it was trying to conceal. And at that point, I knew already something bad was about to happen, though. So I was already braced as he was coming up, and he started walking towards me very quickly. And I just dodged. I sort of nudged him out the way and dodged and walked very quickly to the other side and just ran to the other side of the bridge and just out of that area. But had I not had known that, what would have happened? Because I was quite oblivious when I was dealing with the facts. This person seemed happy. Nothing seemed to be particularly bad. Because I had that word arrive into my head at the right moment, I was already braced for it. Where did that come from? How did I know? Like, is it just a basic gut instinct? But there's so many different points in my life where a word will come, boom, out of nowhere, and it will be a forewarning of something, and I've learned to listen to it over time. When my mum started to date my stepdad many years ago, like, he seemed like a nice guy, because I've always had like quite a bad dad in my life. I'd openly say now, unfortunately. But at that point, I thought, wow, maybe this is what it feels like to have a dad. to have like a good male example in your life. And I was quite young then. I was 13, 14, I don't know, like around that kind of age when he began to be in our lives more. And I thought, this is amazing because he does these amazing things for us. So like, he helps me and my sister, he makes my mum happy. This is great. And then one day I just got this thing in my head, like, watch, warn, warn, warn. And I thought, at the time, but he's really nice to us. And, he bought me a bike and bought my sister this. And we went out, to the zoo one day. And, like, I've come from quite a poor family, though. So to go out that much was like a new thing to me then. I thought, this is amazing. This is what a normal life feels like. And then from that day, I saw that thing. I felt really suspicious of him, but I felt guilty because I felt like maybe, again, I was being negative. And a few years later, he turned out to be a very violent man, nearly tried to kill me and attacked my sister and my mother. But I didn't... Yeah, and that's another big story anyway. But because I knew something was up, I was on watch like a hawk. I was being the owl, in the corner, just watching over time. And I made sure I stayed in the house at certain times when I knew things were about to happen, and it helped to de-escalate at certain times. Obviously, I wasn't successful every time. But yeah, like, this thing has literally saved my life at times.
Oh, yeah.
Again, it could be instinct, but it's just very specific, particular words. And it seems to come from a place of knowledge, of knowing.
Hold on a minute. You've just said it could be instinct. What is instinct?
Instinct... But biologically, I know that the human gut does have a level of processing, similar to the way the brain does. So it processes certain things. That's why you have a gut feeling, like something feels off. But then you kind of question, okay, where is it getting that data from? When I have those feelings, it's in my head. It's not in my gut. It's like almost like somebody punching me right in the face, like boof, straight there.
Too often we put it down to instinct, but we can't actually describe what instinct really is. It's that feeling, and it's that gut feeling that goes ooh in your stomach. I believe that is your psychic self. Yeah, I believe years and years ago, going back to when we were in caves, that psychic sense, we used that. We knew stuff. Yeah, but we've lost it over time, and you got a warning. You got a warning, and it came to pass. We should listen to that. Most people don't listen to it though, Kieran, because oh well, they just pay no heed to it. But that's your psychic self, and this is why I think everybody can develop that.
If you're a religious person, you can still follow a religion and be a medium as well. That's another thing as well, because I know there are spiritualist churches that focus on Christianity, for example, and I know in particular, like, I always remember this lovely, lovely family that we knew growing up. I come from, like, obviously British background, but also with Sardinian and Polish heritage, though. So we had quite a mixed family in terms of culture. So a lot of Italian food, a lot of British food, Polish sausages. Was kind of introduced to the family from my granddad, and we had just such a kind of amazing childhood. But as well as that, we also knew this Muslim family just down the road from us when we lived in Oxford. Like, the son of the mother was one of my first best friends. Like, I'll remember him to the day I die. He'll always be my friend. Because he helped me when I was quite awkward at school and still getting over a trauma. He just knew. He just understood when to calm me, when to help me. And she had two lovely kids. My mum was, best friends with the lady of the family. We all knew the grandmother, and I forgot what point I'm making now. Oh yes, I know now. So long story short, okay, they're a very kind of strong Muslim family. When they need to go to their prayer sessions and perform them in the house, we'd leave the room just to respect them. We'd all be there showing food. Like, we were so close. But the mother, following that religion, she was clearly a medium, 100%, because before the accident that I had, and this is what I'm detailing in the sequel to Paranormal that I'm working on at the moment, before I had the accident where I was hit by a car, this lady spoke to my mum and said, look, I've had a dream. And she described the dream to my mum and said, I can see a man at the side of the road, very dark, but I can still just about see his facial features. And she described his face like not quite a long face though, but a very defined face and serious looking face with a particular hat and particular clothes wearing. And so yeah, she described what seemed to be my granddad, as in my mum's dad, who'd died a few years before then. And she described him being stood at the side of the road, watching, looking quite intently. It's almost like the 1,000-yard stare. It's like, I've seen something and I know something. Where she described was an exact location that was just a short distance away from where my grandmother lived and where the accident eventually happened. So the lady that told the dream to my mum just a few days before the accident happened, obviously she felt guilty if she didn't know that was going to be a thing. Like, she felt like if she gave us enough information, she would have been able to prevent the whole thing from happening. And I'll say now, it's not her fault. Of course, it's not her fault. It's nobody's fault. But the weird thing was, she described my granddad, but she didn't know what my granddad looked like. She knew my mum really well, but she didn't speak about her dad then. She described him down to a T. That's one thing. But on top of that, the exact location where that exact accident happened is wild. But she's an amazing, amazing lady, and I'd love to catch up with her again, actually, because I haven't seen her for a good few years now. But she just had this ability and this knowing, and she could see it in me when I was younger. She used to say certain things to me, and she just had a knowing that, okay, you wanted me, basically, and she had that kind of thing. She kind of treated me like I was one of the gang. But I didn't know what a medium was back then. I just thought, okay, this is just this lady's quirks. And yeah, I'll always think about the family as such a lovely, lovely family. So yeah, like, mediums come in all shapes and forms, really. Like I said, different beliefs. Could you have an atheist medium? Like, that's the thing. Could that work? I don't know.
I don't know. Can't imagine it though.
Yeah. Because if you don't have proof of a higher power, but have seen evidence of things happening that shouldn't happen, at least the way society happens, describes.
Certainly,
I don't know. It's a funny thing.
Your paradigms get challenged a lot when you start to open up. Everything you ever thought was real, and it's just like, wow. So much falls away, so much is replaced. But yeah, I think mediums are important people. We need good mediums. And it's just a shame that they're ridiculed the way they are.
Hopefully this podcast will be part of changing that over time. It's not just simply normalising the conversation about the paranormal, though, but also paranormal also encompasses the people that interact with it on the daily, really. Like, just stop being a-holes to mediums.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely okay to not believe in them. If you want to know, ask. Yeah, I agree. Also, there is evidence of there being untruthful mediums out there who kind of treat it more as entertainment. There are those who prey on those who are grieving. But you can't tar an entire community with a singular brush, which has only been tainted with a single drip. There's barely enough there to spread. So you haven't really got much to go on there. So update your knowledge set and be a bit kinder, really. So yeah, we can all be friends, really. So, but yeah, I'll just round up the conversation, really, because it's been an amazing conversation. So yeah, thank you again, Christine.
Very well. Good to see you.
And yeah, it's always good to see you. And I feel like you've outdone me with colour. I need to bring in some more colour. And
yeah, I like your room. I like that.
Yeah, so my little cat tower over this side, and this little neon thing. This is about as colourful as I get, really. Like, I wear mostly black all the time, but in my house there's a little bit of colour here.
It looks good. Yeah.
So to end the conversation, Christine, like, what message do you want us to end on? Basically, is there something you want to leave for the world that you think may make it a bit more positive?
I would just say, be kind. The world's not a kind place. There's so much anger. Be kind to people. That's what Spirit's about, being kind. That's
a perfect note to end on. Well, thanks again, Christine. You have a fantastic evening, and we'll catch up again soon.
I hope so.
And also, just to remind the guys, I should have said this earlier, really like to watch your Coffee and Clairvoyant podcast. It's just all about mediumship and conversations like this, really. Just stand down to earth and real.
That's what it's all about. Keep it real.
Absolutely. Right, you take care.
See you soon.
Lovely week. Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Choice, sharing dreams and blowing off steam. We'll lend you a hand, we'll let you stand, sharing stories. inspected. I'm a small, not a medium. Let us escape from this tedium, learning from each other, breaking barriers. A message of hope, birthed from the unknown. Who you gonna call? I'm not a ghostbuster. No proton packs, just crossing streams of knowledge. It's not so scary when things get hairy. It's not the paranormal, just future normal. Breaking barriers, no longer the carrier. Releasing the fear and replacing it with knowledge. Understanding each other, we uncover a whole new point of view within you. Paranormal perspectives, we're here to inspect it. I'm a small, not a medium. Let us escape from this tedium, learning from each other, breaking barriers. A message of hope, birthed from the unknown. The only stream we need to cross is the platforms to get the message across. Knowing each other, sister to brother. No ghost or spirit or demon will ever get the better of this medium. Paranormal perspectives, we're here to inspect it. I'm a small, not a medium. Let us escape from this tedium, learning from each other, breaking barriers. A message of hope, birthed